The Ageless, Arknights' mysterious immortals. And I wish I had some good news for you, but I don't. I wish I could reveal the secrets of the universe that are hidden behind these characters, but I can't. Despite how pivotal one of them has been in the main story so far, we are, for the most part, kept completely in the dark in regards to how they work. This faction is just as mysterious now as they were when they were first introduced. And despite one being so central to the character of the main villain of the reunion arc, Tallulah, as far as I can tell, no dedicated video to this group of characters has made its way onto YouTube. Now, that could be due to Ian not being able to read, or any creator who does talk about the lore rolled it all into a Tallulah based video, but I'm going to give this group the focus I think they deserve. Now, me mentioning this could be the first video of its kind is probably opening the floodgates to being told I'm wrong. But one, I'm always right, and two, even if I'm wrong, that just means I discover another lore enjoyer, so the game was rigged from the start in my favor. So what are the Ageless? A question I answered at the beginning of this video. The Ageless are what we would consider to be immortals. The term Ageless itself is more of a fan term used to describe the group of people who fall under its category. The Ageless are also referred to as the long-lived by others in-game, but what matters is that they are effectively immortal, although not always in the same way. So what do we know about them? Ageless can come from any race across Terra, and they gain their immortality through the power of Originium. How do they do this? We don't know yet. All we know is that due to the Originium, they are capable of extending their lives indefinitely. According to Norwell, one of the Ageless we meet during chapter 13, most if not all the Ageless have mastered some form of Originium arts, which very likely aids in their pursuit of immortality. Although also according to him, all of these arts are different from one another, so despite being a common comparison, it still doesn't clear up much. With that said, if one can master whatever form of Originium grants one immortality, anyone on Terra can become an Ageless. So if the knowledge could somehow become widespread, everyone on Terra could quite literally become immortal. So, from what we know, there is currently no way to kill an Ageless. Their body can seemingly be killed, but their spirit seems to persist regardless. However, not even that seems to be completely common, as Norwell has been unable to kill himself regardless of how he has tried during his stint as an immortal, although Norwell is specifically searching for a way to make that impossibility possible. For the most part, knowledge of the Ageless is not known to the general populace of Terra, with a lot of the common people who know of them considering them gods or something similar due to their immense knowledge and power. Their existence is a carefully guarded secret of those in power. However, the governments of each country that houses one make it their business to know about such creatures. And why wouldn't they? Having an immortal soldier would be an invaluable asset to a nation's military, although having a less benevolent Ageless is a cause for concern for everyone. They can quite literally wait for centuries, slowly putting the pieces into place for a master plan that no one could see coming without carefully observing one over the centuries. So we know they are immortal, but how do they feel about it? Well, of course, that varies from Ageless to Ageless. Of the Ageless we know about, most of them are fairly happy with their lot in life. You can imagine that being immortal in a world as vicious and uncaring as Terra would be a benefit. Not being able to die would very literally put you above the lot of most people. Some use this to aid their country of origin, sacrificing their own sanity to perform feats that no ordinary human would be able to achieve. Others take that immortality and use it to manipulate the very fate of the nation they call home, steering it towards their own goal for the betterment of their nation's power. And yet others view this endless life that they have been given as a curse, forced to watch all they care about age and die while they persist. Unable to pass on, they are forced to wander the land forever. And that is about it for general Ageless lore. They aren't a race or a species, so the only other information we can use for this video is an explanation for the various Ageless that we have met in-game. So let's start off with the most important one as far as the story goes, the Deathless Black Snake of Ursus. The Ageless at the heart of the reunion crisis. He or she or they, as their original gender is not known to us, has taken many forms over the long centuries of their existence, being involved in many nations during the history of Terra, including Kagan, Gaul, and of course, Ursus. At some point, he developed arts that allows him to implant his psyche into others. So far, we have seen 3 hosts for the Black Snake: Katchi, Tallulah, and Kosalina, going 2 to 1 as a woman so far, so do with that information as you will. The snake does this by overwhelming the psyche of his hosts and puppets them. Not a perfect system, but it has served him pretty flawlessly for around 1,000 years. If someone like, say, I don't know, Tallulah, had a strong enough will, they would be able to resist the influence of the snake. However, should that will ever break, he would gain control over their body. Like with Tallulah being able to resist his influence for years before her friend Delina died, and she went on to murder a bunch of unarmed Ursus civilians. They totally deserved it, but it broke Tallulah a little bit and allowed for the snake to take full control of her. Although even when in control, the snake must adhere to the morals of his host, being unable to perform an action the host wouldn't. This is what ultimately led to him failing to start a war between the Ursus Empire and Yan, and with the help of Chen and Amiya, Tallulah regained her will to live, and so the snake lost control of her body, even if he could still torment her in her mind. That's the high-level summary of the snake, but there was a lot more to discuss with him, so let's run through the hosts for completeness sake. Katchi is a Duke of Ursus. Through him we learn much of the snake's personality and goals. He views conflict to be the nature of Terra, and has a very ends justify the means attitude to his actions. He views himself as the very embodiment of Ursus, and strives to restore Ursus to the great and powerful country it was during its peak, and will use any means at his disposal to achieve that goal. As such, infected or not, if you are useful to his plans, you are worth something to him. He had a bitter feud with Wei and Edward Artorias, which set back his plans considerably, so he set in motion events that would force Wei to kill his best friend. Katchi would then proceed to kidnap Tallulah, which would not only set up his next host, due to Wei allowing her to be taken, it would also form a rift between him and Chen. Despite Katchi's best efforts, he could never quite convince Tallulah to carry out his will, and Tallulah would outright reject his teaching by viewing the suffering his ideals would cause. This would inevitably lead to Tallulah killing Katchi, and his consciousness would transfer to her, eventually re-emerging after Tallulah massacred Ursus civilians, feeding her mind with seeds of doubt, which Tallulah believed to be her own doubts, until he eventually gained control of her body. And so, the Black Snake would take reunion and Tallulah's dream of saving the infected and twist it to his own ends, leading up to the reunion crisis that starts Arknights' main story. As such, the Tallulah we know from the beginning of the game till the end of Chapter 8 is actually the Black Snake, further tormenting Tallulah with the actions he has taken under her name. Fully emerging to battle against Amiya and Chen at the climax of Chapter 8, the Black Snake is a force of nature while controlling Tallulah, but Amiya and Chen are able to push him into a corner where he turns the sword on himself, but is unable to kill Tallulah due to her consciousness finally reasserting itself. It is due to this that the Black Snake is forced to admit defeat, but only temporarily, as in his own words, there will always be another Chernobog and another Tallulah. Following Tallulah's escape from Rhodes Island custody, we meet his final incarnation, Kosalina, a university lecturer and a baddie for real. She uses her position as a teacher to spread her political ideology to her students, hoping to shape them in her own image and inspire them to achieve her ideals. Upon meeting her, Tallulah considers killing her, but ultimately decides to spare her as she doubts that the Black Snake will be able to be killed until Ursus has been changed from the country it is now. Up next is Norwell, a fairly minor character in Arknights' story, although another Ageless that has appeared before Tallulah. Norwell is a Victorian Ageless. He doesn't possess the ability to jump from host to host like the Black Snake, but he hasn't been an Ageless all that long, so maybe he'll develop that eventually. Up until around 150 years before the Victoria Crisis, he even lived with his family, but has since cut contact with them. Unlike the Black Snake, Norwell doesn't have a higher purpose beyond living day to day. In fact, he views his immortality as a curse. Considering himself to be an average man aside from the whole immortality thing, his main goal is to find a way to end his suffering. Originally dedicating himself to his study of Originium and all those long-lived species on Terra, following the death of his wife in a car accident, he accidentally stumbled upon immortality. He would only come to realize his predicament as he watched his own children grow up, have families, and eventually die of old age. Even after achieving immortality, he was unable to make anything of himself, failing to become a noble, failing to become rich, and all he had in life was his own small shop. So he simply wanders the land of terror now, believing that a dark cabal of people control the fate of Victoria from behind the scenes, all while searching for a way to end his life. He does say an interesting line though before departing from Reunion: "Pain makes you live forever, and only happiness can kill you." This might be a hint on how to kill Norwell, and maybe even Ageless in general. But for Norwell, it is an impossibility currently, as he has forgotten how to even feel happiness, which is a tragedy in and of itself. But perhaps by the end of the Victoria crisis, he might have a happy ending, but only time will tell. Currently, the latest Ageless that we've met is the old Tianshi, first mentioned in Invitation to Wine, before finally making an appearance in Here Are People's Souls. Another Ageless who has walked the earth for 1,000 years, being about as old as the Sui siblings. She is the most powerful and skilled Tianshi in Yan, which you would expect of one who has lived for centuries. The old Tianshi, as mentioned by Dusk during Invitation to Wine, has developed her immortality by implanting Originium within herself, making her infected or potentially not, which could have led to her immortality. We don't know the specifics, so I'm speculating, but whatever she did worked, as she has lived for centuries, manning the walls at the north of Yan for over 370 years prior to the events of Here Are People's Souls. She is even a founder of the school that Leslie learned under, so we have her to thank for Leslie being who she is. She also has developed a strategy to face the demons of the north by pretending to be mad, which protects her mind from demonic corruption. Not sure how that works, but it does, so we should probably tell everyone that, especially Sammy. They need that knowledge. The old Tianshi, of course, plays a large part in the protection of Yan, and unlike the Black Snake, actually works to better her country alongside her government. She has even attempted to ensure the Sui siblings' loyalty to Yan, but that has had mixed results. Fun fact: the old Tianshi and Mudrock have one similarity, and that is that their gender has been retconned. Originally referred to as a man in Invitation to Wine, it was only during the events of Here Are People's Souls where we saw her for the first time, and we learned her actual gender. So I haven't checked it, but I assume they have updated Invitation to Wine since the release of Here Are People's Souls, but potentially not, so read the last part of Invitation to Wine and let me know. Finally, onto the only playable Ageless, 9-colored deer. Yes, the free operator that I'm sure you leveled up, despite not being a particularly powerful unit. She is an Ageless who we know very little about. She's a doctor from Yan, and she has a pretty close relationship with Dusk of all people. And considering how unsociable Dusk is, the fact that she willingly hangs out with 9-colored deer, she must be a very personable person. She hasn't really been featured in any events yet, so we don't know much about her, besides what her operator file, module, and operator record tell us. But she's pretty cool, and I do hope they do more with her in the future. But yeah, she feels super underutilized, despite being the only playable immortal Ageless. Like, I was unsure if she even was one based purely off of her operator file and record, but her module does hard confirm it, so even if you have her E2, you still need more investment to actually learn that she is an Ageless. Now hopefully in the future Sui story, we get to have her introduced and her to actually do something, but from the sound of her operator record it seems like she wasn't that involved. Only time will tell. Finally, for completion's sake, a potential Ageless, the Troupe Master of the Crimson Troupe, who we know very little about. This image you see on screen of the nice young man sitting down with that script in his hand, yeah, that's not him. That's the troupe's playwright. The hand on the side of this image, that's the Troupe Master. We don't even know what he looks like. We don't even know who he is. We only know what the item descriptions in IS2 tell us about him. And of course, there's some Phantom module and other IS2 endings that give us a little bit more info on him. So Dark Souls fans, I'm sure you'll love him. That aside though, through the item Sigil of Tragodia, we learn that the Troupe Master is born as a manifestation of Oaths, which to me implies that he is an Ageless. Not to mention the fact that his Crimson Troupe have been running around since the time of the Witch King, with seemingly no change in leadership. This item also refers to the cravings of the Troupe Master to be forever without end, which at least to me is further evidence of its immortality. But until Phantom gets more lore to expand on this specific individual, we will be left with only speculation on this particular character. I just wanted to bring him up because he's kind of interesting, and unless I cover the Integrated Strategies 2 lore, which maybe will happen, we will see, I will never get a chance to talk about him. So that's it for the Ageless, a rather important group which, despite their small size, has had a large impact on the main story of Arknights. I can only assume that as the game continues on and on, that we shall only learn more and more about the immortals that call Terra their home. So I want to pass it over to you. What are your thoughts on the Ageless? Cool, bad, ruined the character of Tallulah by giving her an out for her actions? Let me know down below. Y'all be good people, and I'll see you in the next one.